If you like what you hear,
subscribe and follow us on Twitter at WTAE Podcast.
Thank you for joining us today. This is Worth the Admission Podcast. I am B. Frank.
And I'm Travis. We're going to give you a nice bite-sized chunk of our podcast today. We decided we're limited on time, so we're just going to jump in and do this. So, Brandon, up first. I know the biggest thing we want to talk about, and he's going to get into it later. But I know let's just glance over Regal Unlimited. Let's just talk about what that subscription service means to you, because I know you signed up for it. You haven't had a chance to use it yet, so I want to wait till we get some firsthand experience. But overall, I know you were excited that this came out because you go every week.
Yes, it's something that opens up the possibilities of other movies. Watching the trailers in the movie I went to yesterday, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I noticed that I was more open to seeing all of the movies than just having to pick and choose which one I had to go to or which one I wanted to go to.
First of all, I'm jealous that you saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I know it's had mixed reviews, but I am jealous because I do want to see that. But I'm glad that it's not limiting for these new movies with Regal Unlimited. I don't want to call it Marvel Unlimited so much. I just think it's because I have the comic book thing and I like comics, and that's the only thing that has Unlimited in it. So with Regal Unlimited, it's nice to see that subscription service. It's something different, like you said. We were talking about this. I'm excited. Once you get a chance to use it, from all accounts, it seems super easy just to even sign up for it. It only takes a couple minutes. I'll let you explain all that because you're going to break it down hardcore, and I want people to stick around and tune in for that. But let's talk about some of the other movies that we've seen lately.
Well, I saw Lion King last weekend, which, as a live-action remake, it was good. The characteristics of the characters were different, but it was still obviously the same movie. But again, it was Lion King, so that's the one I was going to make sure that I saw in theaters. Aladdin, Dumbo, Mulan, yes, they're good, and I like the older movies, but it's just, if it's the same exact thing, I've seen it before.
Oh, so basically you're just talking about most of the movies that made $1 billion, except for Dumbo. We won't talk about that. But for everything else, I mean, with Disney, you're talking Lion King, that just crossed. Spider-Man on the Marvel side of things.
Aladdin.
I mean, it's crazy to see all of these movies hit at such a close time frame. I mean, we just talked about Avengers last week breaking the all-time record. I mean, everything's great for them. And Disney Plus is going to be an add-on channel to Hulu.
Yes, I saw that.
Like an HBO Now. I am very excited about that. I know that's off the topic of movies, and we're really kind of all over the place right now with our topics, but it's just one of those things that I liked where they're promoting it the right way. It's not trying to take away from anything, it's just trying to add. And I think that's a really cool version of it.
The fact that Disney owns most of Hulu anyway, so it makes sense. But that's kind of how they're going to start their packages. Guys, I could totally see Disney coming out with an ESPN streaming service as well, because why not?
They already technically have an ESPN Plus. It's $5 a month, and it can be through their ESPN app. But you're right. We all want everything all in one location. And I kind of think it's cool that Disney Plus will stand off on its own, or you can add it on to something. And I think marketing that's going to be a really cool way. Because I do want to see all those movies you're talking about, like Lion King and Aladdin, and because they're not ones I'm crazy about seeing in theater. And in my family, it's hard to do the Regal Pass thing, but it is nice that I can be able to sit home and watch a lot of these movies right when they come out with like Disney Plus. So that is a really cool benefit to what we're going to see in the future. And I think we've already talked about it many times. It's our recurring debate on the future of the movie industry and what it's going to take to make movies and have movie distributed out there.
And Regal Unlimited is going to help that, I believe, because you now don't have the restrictions of, well, I got to see it either opening night, opening weekend, or on a Tuesday. With Regal Unlimited, you can see it any day at any time that you want. And that really opens up those possibilities of getting more out there, because you figure not everybody's going to have the subscription. So if those with the subscription go see more movies, word of mouth and social media is going to take those people that don't have unlimited, and it's going to push them to the theaters paying the normal price of $10 to $13 for the movie. It's definitely a game changer. I just don't know if we can really understand the magnitude of it quite yet.
And with Regal, I mean, that's only one of many theater chains out there, so it's going to be interesting to see who else really picks this up and if they really run with it. Because even if it's just Regal, that's just the nationwide chain, and because if they're the ones that jump on this quicker before anybody else, which they have, this puts them in a big lead above, say a Cinemark and a lot of these other companies, especially what we see in town, like Galaxy and a lot of the other ones, that if you don't have that, or you don't have that for your theater, I think you're going to start losing that, because you're right, we're all based in a subscription-based world now. Disney Plus or even Netflix, it's how we watch things. It's how we buy things. I mean, even with Amazon Prime. Even with Amazon, you get Amazon Prime TV shows, but you also get Amazon Prime. It's all wrapped around in some kind of subscription service. So it's interesting. It just depends on how much money are people willing to spend every month to go to the movies, and I think that's one of those things too. I think it's a great price point. You and me going to 2 movies a month, that pays for itself. Especially me being in Vegas, where theater prices are a lot more expensive. $18 a month for I pay $16 to go to IMAX. I pay $18 some places to go to IMAX. For me, buying one movie ticket or one pass, I'll go see everything in standard definition as long as I'm able to have my options open. I mean, of course.
That's the cool part too, is if you ever decide to do an IMAX, you pay the little bit extra and you go see the IMAX. That's kind of the cool part with it, is yes, you are limited to your standard theaters, but you still have the ability to pay more.
I know we want to talk about The Boys real quick. Speaking of Amazon shows, I got to see a chance to see the trailer. I know you watched the first season, so don't spoil anything too much for me yet. I know you raved about it, but give me a little bit of a summary of what you thought of that show.
It's definitely not your standard superhero show. It's kind of more on the realistic and gritty side of down on the ground, I think is the best way to put it. You see these superheroes as the almighty force, and how do you live inside that world, and what is living inside that world like. And the opening few minutes really sets the tone for how the rest of the show is going to feel and look, and how the story is going to progress. It is a show that has an overall story arc for the series and not for the season per se. So it's more like parts, kind of like Mr. Robot or Stranger Things. Yes, you may have that thing that kind of goes throughout the season, but that's not a story arc for the show itself.
And see, I can get behind a different kind of arc like that, because it's something different that we don't always see in a lot of your traditional just cut and A-B storyline. So it's kind of nice to see just basically a life and what's going to happen in it. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I was excited about it, is because I saw the trailer, and as funny as those moments are, I really want to see the deeper reasoning behind these characters and in a more serious light, because it doesn't feel like it's not a traditional superhero show, as I was going to say Marvel for a second. It doesn't quite feel like anything else that we see out on TV. And that's one of those things that in nowadays market, that's what we want. We want to be able to have that diversity. And even in a superhero show, we're inundated in this market of all of this nerd culture, geek culture, superheroes, everything like that. To get something different is pretty cool. It's a different take, and it almost feels like a rebel now. It kind of felt like the way The Walking Dead was when The Walking Dead took charge. There's just there's those different elements where it's just explaining a life, something that's that we've often seen and thought of, but it's done completely different.
Think about it like a Captain America movie, where you have all this destruction going on, but you don't see what's happening on the ground at all times. And so with this show, you get that in a very gritty and realistic fashion, based on what's happening and what heroes there are out there. So it's definitely worth the admission. It was renewed for a season 2 before season 1 even aired. So we will be getting more of them, and I'm really excited for that.
2 more things I want to talk about, because this is, I was surprised with a lot of the news that we got this week. We even got a few more trailers, and we got Zombieland 2, which looks phenomenal.
Yes.
And we got Irishman. We'll talk about Irishman in a second, but Zombieland 2, just give me your first impressions of being able to see that cast again 10 years later.
From the trailer, it looks like they're topping the first one, which is in itself now a classic zombie movie. But it seems like they are taking what they made with that one, taking the best elements and heightening them bringing them to a more wide area of story.
I'm gonna be perfectly okay with that. I even heard Emma Stone in an interview saying that how she wanted to do them every 10 years, which for me would be perfectly all right because 10 years things change. That movie was perfect for that time frame when zombies were really getting hot and becoming bigger at that time. And then now we look back now 10 years later where a lot of it's cooled off. I mean, people aren't into it as much as they were anymore. It's still big in the genre, but to see how they handle that and they take that with making a story the best way they could, they took that family and that unity, which is one of the best parts of the ending of that movie, and looks like they're going to blossom on it, and I'm very excited to see what happens. I mean, anytime you can revisit a character 10 years after, it works.
And then heading into Irishman, I think it's going to be Netflix's first movie that actually has a shot at some awards. It's still distributed by Netflix and not produced by them, which irks me a little bit, but it's still Martin Scorsese. It's still a Martin Scorsese movie with his older cast, like his original cast members. Joe Pesci kind of came out of retirement for it. So I'm expecting it to be a Scorsese flick and to live up to the Scorsese name. I just wish Netflix would produce them on their own.
Here's the thing, though. I love that I can be able to watch it on Netflix, but this is one I will see in the theater. The Irishman, like you said, Joe Pesci coming out of retirement, not only shows a staple of the quality of the movie that he's putting in, but we know what's in his wheelhouse. It's very much that mobster, gangster, like that. It's always been those great gritty dramas that he's been able to make out of just that crime era. Doesn't matter what decade he's put in, whether this is set in the 70s?
Yeah, with Hoffa.
I believe this is. But you've had everything from The Departed too, which was in '06, which was a little more modern for the time. He can take these crime dramas and just build them so well. And just to see the cast, like I said, Joe Pesci's back, but you also have Al Pacino,
Robert De Niro.
But to see the pacing, that phone call of that scene just made everything feel so real, and I like the way he makes those movies. It puts a smile on my face, and it's when you talk about what puts you in the movie seat, that's one of those things. I know the feeling I'm going to get, and I know it's going to be good, and I know I'm going to enjoy it because I like the stories he likes to tell. So, The Irishman, though on Netflix, is coming out in select theaters soon. I'm very excited about that. Last bit of news, which I thought I wanted to talk to you about for a minute, is It, Chapter 2. 2 hours and 45 minute runtime. Long time. I know you love the first one. I saw the first one as well. What are you expecting out of the second one? Now that we've seen the first one, I mean, do they have 2 hours and 45 minutes of story to tell?
They could definitely tell it. It seems like they're still going to be bouncing between them as kids and them as adults. So I think we're going to get probably about an hour 45 throughout of adults and maybe 45 minutes of kids, or I guess an hour of kids. It's kind of unprecedented for a horror movie, and they're going to have to rely more on the situational and psychological horror than the jump scares like they did on the first one. But I am expecting them to take that and run with it because as adults, they're going to be more capable of doing things and handling things. So the only way to make those adults scared who have faced this being before is to put them in even worse situations than they were in before. So I'm excited. 2 hours 45 minutes is definitely a long movie, let alone for horror. I'll probably do a good review on that one for sure because going to the theater,
absolutely.
To the theater for Avengers is different than going for a movie with a clown demon. So you really have to toe those lines.
I feel like Avengers 2 hours and 45 minutes or 3 hours, you knew what you were getting, and I think it was a culmination, so you were willing to sit. Something that was a remake that now is a sequel that we haven't seen of the original, because there never was a sequel of that original that I can at least remember that was ever made. This is something that's completely in uncharted territories with the genre as well, too. So yeah. I think that's what makes this, you're right, unprecedented for the genre that it's in, but I think there's a lot of story. I think you're right with where we need to be in the story and what they're trying to tell with being young and also being older, because we saw that both in the trailer. It's going to put together a scary story, and it's one that, even though I'm not much on it, I'm very much looking forward to seeing this one in theaters.
I think that sums up our kind of first part. I'm gonna run solo on this next part because Travis hasn't had a chance to sign up for Regal Unlimited yet, and I have. So I'm going to give you a breakdown here, and we'll kind of go from there.
All right, kids. So next week we'll have a couple other things to talk about. I know the new Chris Evans movie. We're gonna review that over the week. That's gonna be on Netflix starting on Friday. I do want to talk to you about Mindhunter a little bit more. Season 2 is premiering August 16th, which I'm very excited about. I finally finished and decided not to be a slowpoke on it, so we'll get to that next episode. And I'm sure with the Regal Pass, every movie that is out in theaters right now, he will have been able to find a way to see them with his Regal Unlimited Pass, and I'm going to ask him about him next time.
Well, he is Travis, and he is signing off. Welcome to Be Frank and Regal Unlimited. So Regal Unlimited came out this Monday, 29th of July, and just kind of dropped randomly. There was a bunch of news about it leading up, and then all of a sudden it was out. This is going to kind of break that down through the setup process and kind of what to expect after you have it. The setup itself is really easy. You update your Regal app if you haven't already, and there's probably a banner at the top, and there will be forever for their advertisement. Click on that, and it takes you to the sign-up process. If you already have a Regal Crown Club member card, it will take that and pair it with your subscription. If you don't, it will set you up with one, because you'll still be able to get your points, use them for food, and you can even use them for free tickets, but I guess why would you? You have your standard information dump, where you put in your name, your address, and your card, your zip code, and then it asks for your preferred theater. Here in Boise, most of them fall within the $18 range, but it recommends a plan based on the theater that you choose. I ended up going with the $23.50 just because I felt it was more worth it, and you get more as you go up in that price point. It then moves you into a later screen and gives you that ability to upgrade. You can pay for an entire year, or you can pay it monthly. Paying for an entire year won't give you any type of discount, so, just go monthly. There is a minimum 1 year, contract in a way. When you sign up, you're signed up for a 1 year minimum. After that year, you can cancel, you can pay yearly, you can pay monthly still, but you're in for that year. I didn't see any information about cancellation fees or anything, but there would be some because you're stuck for that year. But once you check out, it only takes about 5 minutes. Then you can start creating your reservations. You get 3 reservations at a time, and none of those 3 reservations can be for the same movie. However, if you had one reservation for one movie and you wanted to see that movie again, once that movie is done, once that showing that you're going to see is done, you can select another showtime for that movie. So it's as many movies as you want, as many times as you want, whenever you want, which is really the best thing. And as far as I could tell, there aren't any restrictions on like Thursday premieres and stuff like that, like Movie Pass had, at least there at the end. You get 3 options, $18, $21, or $23.50 a month, and as you go up, you just get access to more theaters. Now here in Boise, there are like 6 theaters that I can go to, and all but one of them fall within that $18 price point. But if you're going on vacation or you see movies elsewhere, there's an upcharge if it doesn't fall within that price line that you're in. With the 21 and the 23, you just get more theater capabilities. Regardless, you get an extra 10% off of concessions, free popcorn and soda on your birthday, and access to other kind of special things. Based on the rules and guidelines, for somebody who goes to the movies as often as myself or Travis or maybe even you, it's worth it. But for like a family or something like that only sees movies once a month or maybe twice a month, it may not necessarily be worth it. But so far, I haven't had a chance to use it yet, but I plan on using it before the week's done. So keep an eye out for a little bit more information there. But as it stands currently, I'd say it's worth the price. So with that being said, he was Travis and I am B. Frank, and this is Worth the Admission.